Why did you go after Julian Assange? Why did you go after journalists? First man! Why have you betrayed?
Moments ago, mass chaos has erupted in the heart of London as thousands pour into the streets and the air is filled with anger and disbelief. Keir Starmer, the Labour leader, finds himself at the epicentre of a public storm, facing a tidal wave of boos and outrage from citizens who feel betrayed and unheard. The protests are not just local. They are spreading fast, igniting tension across the entire UK. What started as a simmering discontent has now exploded into one of the most dramatic public demonstrations in recent history, shaking the foundations of the political establishment. Starmer's every move is being scrutinised and the public reaction is deafening, sending shockwaves through the corridors of power. The protests in London began as small pockets of anger, but quickly escalated into massive demonstrations, with citizens from every corner of the city taking to the streets. People are holding banners, chanting slogans and making their voices impossible to ignore. The atmosphere is electric, charged with frustration that has been building over months of political promises unfulfilled. Starmer, once seen as a figure of calm and reason, is now facing the full fury of the public. His attempts to address the crowd have been met with a wave of boos, jeers and growing unrest. Security forces are stretched to the limit, struggling to maintain order as the crowd swells by the minute. The intensity of the protests reflects a deeper anger within the UK, with citizens expressing frustration over policies, rising costs, and what many perceive as a disconnect between the government and ordinary people. Social media is ablaze with videos of the protests, showing Starmer being booed relentlessly as demonstrators demand answers. Analysts are calling this a turning point, highlighting that the scale and passion of the protests indicate a political crisis unlike anything seen in recent years. Every street corner, every square has become a stage for public outrage, with London at the centre of a storm that could have nationwide consequences. What makes this uprising even more shocking is the speed at which it has spread. From central London to surrounding boroughs, protests are appearing almost simultaneously, indicating a coordinated wave of public anger. Citizens are no longer waiting for politicians to respond. They are taking to the streets to demand accountability. The visuals are striking. Sea after sea of people chanting, banners waving, and the collective roar of a city united in discontent. Starmer's aides are reportedly scrambling, attempting to manage a crisis that is spiralling out of control. The question now is whether the Labour leader can weather this storm or if these protests mark a dramatic shift in public opinion. Even those who have traditionally supported Starmer are expressing disappointment. The growing chorus of dissent spans across party lines, showing that this is more than just a political disagreement, it's a nationwide reckoning. The speed, scale and intensity of the protests suggests that the public is no longer willing to wait quietly for change. This is a pivotal moment, not just for Starmer, but for the entire UK political landscape. Every second that passes brings new footage, new reactions and mounting pressure, leaving the nation watching, waiting and wondering what will happen next. As the protests continue to escalate, London streets are turning into a battleground of public sentiment. The sheer scale of the demonstrations has stunned political observers, with millions taking to the streets in a unified outcry against Starmer's leadership. The city is now a sea of chanting, waving banners and relentless energy that refuses to be ignored. Ordinary citizens, activists and even opposition figures are converging in the heart of the capital, creating a tension so thick it could be cut with a knife. Starmer, once a symbol of measured authority, now finds himself facing a public that refuses to listen to reason or promises. Every attempt he makes to address concerns is drowned out by an unrelenting wave of boos, echoing through London streets and reverberating across the country. The protests are not merely spontaneous, they are fueled by deep-seated frustrations that have been simmering for months. Citizens are angry about rising living costs, growing inequality, and a sense that their voices are no longer represented in the halls of power. The unrest has tapped into a collective sentiment of betrayal, with many viewing Starmer as disconnected from the struggles of everyday people. Social media platforms are flooded with footage of the chaos, with viral clips showing demonstrations surrounding his motorcade, shouting and demanding accountability. The visual impact alone has amplified the scale of the protests, drawing in participants from areas far beyond central London. Political commentators are warning that this wave of public anger is unprecedented in its intensity. Analysts suggest that Starmer's response in the coming hours could determine whether these protests dissipate or evolve into something far more disruptive. The stakes are higher than ever, with the Labour leader under immense scrutiny not just from the public but from within his own party. Rumours of internal dissent are swirling, with aides and MPs reportedly questioning whether the current strategy can contain the mounting crisis. Every gesture, every statement is dissected, with the public watching Starmer's every move through a lens of suspicion and anger. The energy on the streets is contagious. Families, students and workers are uniting in a shared chorus of discontent, demonstrating that this is no longer about politics alone. It is about a nation demanding to be heard. The protests have forced London into a state of high alert, with transport disruptions, street closures and an unprecedented police presence failing to quell the surge of demonstrators. Starmer's leadership is under siege, and the UK watches on, captivated by a story unfolding in real time, with the outcome still uncertain. Every second brings new tension, new scenes of confrontation, and an ever-growing sense that the political landscape is shifting before our eyes. The implications of these protests are massive. Not only is Starmer facing immediate backlash, but the political ripple effects could extend far beyond London. Regional leaders, MPs and even members of the cabinet are watching closely, trying to gauge a public reaction and prepare for what may come next. The sheer scale and intensity of the anger suggests that this is a critical moment in UK politics, one that could redefine leadership, policy and the relationship between government and the people. Starmer's fate now hangs in the balance as the UK witnesses a dramatic showdown between authority and public will, and the nation braces for what comes next. The situation in London shows no signs of slowing down. As protests spread across the city, the roar of discontent grows louder with each passing hour. Streets that were once calm are now filled with tens of thousands of demonstrators, their chants echoing against the buildings and reaching the ears of a stunned political establishment. Starmer's every move is being tracked, every word analysed, as the public makes it clear that they will not tolerate half measures or empty promises. The Labour leader's attempts to calm the crowd or address their concerns are being drowned out by the sheer scale of the outrage, highlighting the disconnect between leadership and citizens on the ground. The anger is visceral, raw and deeply personal for many protesters. Families with children, workers from all sectors and students are standing shoulder to shoulder, united in frustration. Banners and slogans make clear that this is more than just dissatisfaction with policies. It is a demand for accountability, transparency and immediate action. Social media has become a battleground of its own, with live streams and viral videos capturing moments that will define this crisis for years to come. Each clip showing Starmer being booed or confronted by citizens adds fuel to the fire, inspiring even more people to join the streets and make their voices heard. Inside the political corridors, panic is growing. Starmer's aides are scrambling to strategise damage control. Yet the speed and intensity of the protests make it almost impossible to respond effectively. MPs from both sides of the aisle are forced to reckon with the public fury, realising that the consequences of this unrest could reshape the UK's political landscape. Analysts warn that if the protests continue to escalate, the repercussions could reach far beyond London, potentially triggering nationwide demonstrations and further destabilising the government. The scale of public participation and intensity of emotion has turned what might have been a local protest into a defining moment for the nation. What makes the crisis even more shocking is the spontaneity and organisation of the demonstrations. Citizens are not waiting for official channels to act. They are taking matters into their own hands, flooding the streets in an unprecedented show of unity and defiance. The images of London engulfed in protest, with thousands moving in unison, make it clear that this is a political earthquake, shaking the foundations of established authority. Starmer's position is more precarious than ever, as the public refuses to be silenced, and the media relentlessly covers every development. With tensions running at their peak, London has become a focal point of nationwide scrutiny, and every action, statement or misstep has the potential to escalate the crisis even further. As night falls over the capital, the protests show no sign of ending. The energy, frustration and determination of the demonstrators remain undiminished, highlighting that this is not just a moment, it is a movement. Starmer is now at a crossroads, forced to confront a public that is louder, angrier and more united than ever. The streets of London are alive with urgency, and the entire UK is watching, waiting to see whether leadership can rise to meet the challenge or crumble under pressure. Every second counts, every chant matters, and the unfolding events are a stark reminder that in politics, power is never guaranteed and public sentiment can ignite change faster than anyone anticipates. As the protests continue to dominate London, the scales of the unrest is becoming impossible to ignore. Starmer faces a level of public anger that has left political insiders scrambling for solutions. Streets remain clogged with demonstrators, their voices unrelenting, their demands clear. Accountability, transparency, and immediate action. Each wave of chanting and every boo that meets Starmer serves as the stark reminder that the public is no longer willing to tolerate politics as usual. London, and increasingly the rest of the UK, has become a stage for raw, unfiltered dissent, and the political fallout is only beginning. The impact of these events is rippling across every corner of the country. Local councils, MPs and even party officials are monitoring the situation with growing concern. Citizens are speaking out in ways that have never been seen before, organising, sharing and mobilising at an unprecedented pace. The protests have transcended traditional political boundaries, uniting people from all walks of life in a single, undeniable statement: the public will not remain silent. Starmer's leadership is being questioned not just by opposition parties, but by the very citizens who once supported him, and the pressure is intensifying with each passing hour. In the midst of the chaos, analysts warn that the political landscape could be permanently altered. Decisions made now, statements issued, and actions taken could either diffuse the crisis or ignite even greater unrest. Starmer's every move is under the microscope, and there is no room for error. The momentum of the protests, coupled with the widespread anger and media coverage, creates a situation where missteps could have devastating consequences. The UK is witnessing a political showdown that is both dramatic and unpredictable, a moment where public power has risen to challenge political authority in the most visible way possible. Even as night falls, the intensity does not diminish. The roar of the crowds, the chants, and the sheer energy of the demonstrators continue to fill London streets. Starmer is confronted with a reality that is stark and undeniable. Leadership is not about titles or speeches. It is about connection, trust, and the ability to respond to a public that refuses to be ignored. The nation watches, breathless as the events unfold in real time, knowing that the outcome could redefine the future of British politics. Every second is a reminder that the people hold immense power, and that even the most prominent leaders are vulnerable when public anger reaches a boiling point. London, and indeed the UK, stands at the edge of a moment that will be remembered for years to come, a moment where the voice of the masses has erupted with unstoppable force and the political world has been shaken to its core. With the protests stretching into yet another day, the atmosphere across London feels heavier than ever. Tension hangs in the air like a storm cloud ready to break, and every new chant from the crowd adds pressure on a government already buckling under the weight. The police presence has doubled and barricades line the central streets, but none of it slows the surge of citizens demanding answers. Every corner of the city hums with restless energy, as if the entire nation has reached a point where silence is no longer an option. Starmer watches events unfold from behind closed door, aware that the next decision he makes could define not only his leadership, but the country's direction for years to come. Inside party headquarters, the mood is grim and uncertain. Advisors whisper in urgent tones, trying to predict the public's next move while attempting to craft a response strong enough to calm the fury outside. Yet every potential statement feels too weak, too late. The protests have grown beyond policy and politics. They have become a symbol of a frustrated nation finally finding its voice. News outlets broadcast non-stop footage of swelling crowds, emotional testimonials, and raw scenes that reveal a deep divide between leaders and the people they govern. Even seasoned analysts struggle to predict what comes next because the situation has entered uncharted territory. As pressure builds, Starmer faces a dilemma with no easy escape. Respond too softly and the protests may intensify. Respond too harshly and the backlash could spiral into something even more uncontrollable. The public is watching with sharp eyes, hungry for action, clarity and transparency. Every second of hesitation becomes another spark, feeding the fire outside. The entire government is now caught in a vortex of public anger, media scrutiny and political instability. Meanwhile, the streets continue to rumble as chants rise into the night sky, echoing through London like a warning bell that refuses to be ignored. Across the UK, people are bracing for the next development. Will Starmer address the nation? Will Parliament intervene? Or will the protests spread even further? Turning this moment into a political turning point, no one knows. What is clear is that the country stands at a crossroads. A moment where leadership is tested, trust is questioned, and the voice of the public is louder than ever. As the lights of London flicker against the restless crowd, one thing becomes certain: this is not the end of the story. It is only the beginning of a crisis that could reshape the future of the nation. As dawn breaks over London, the city wakes to another day of turmoil. The protests, far from fading, have only grown stronger overnight. Fresh crowds gather at major landmarks, swelling the movement with new voices and renewed determination. The sound of chanting rolls through the streets like thunder, a constant reminder that the public's patience has snapped. What began as scattered frustration has exploded into a nationwide demonstration of anger, unity and defiance. Starmer, meanwhile, is facing pressure from every direction. Opponents demanding clarity, supporters demanding action, and the public demanding change with a force that cannot be ignored. Inside Westminster, the atmosphere is suffocating. Every corridor feels charged with anxiety as MPs exchange uneasy glances, wondering how much longer the situation can remain contained. Rumours spread of emergency meetings, late-night calls, and frantic attempts to control a crisis that seems to grow larger with every passing hour. Even those who once stood firmly by Starmer's side are beginning to question whether his leadership can survive the storm. The political landscape is shifting beneath their feet, leaving the government scrambling for footing in a moment where every wrong move could tip the balance even further. Meanwhile, outside, the protesters show no signs of slowing. Ordinary people who have never attended a demonstration in their lives now stand shoulder to shoulder with activists and community leaders. Their anger is real. Their frustration unmistakable. They chant with an intensity that shakes even the most seasoned politicians. The streets, lit by early morning light, are filled with signs demanding accountability, fairness and answers that have long been avoided. For the first time in years, the divide between the government and the people feels impossibly wide, and the protests serve as a living testament to the nation's growing sense of disconnect. Starmer is cornered by a question he can no longer escape. How do you lead a nation that no longer trusts your voice? His advisors warn that any delay could make the situation irreparable, but rushing into a statement could ignite even more fury. Every option feels dangerous. Every path forward carries risks